There is news and there is news and F1 updates, notwithstanding technical difficulties and buffering, but whatever. We go as we go. Got to talk about Helmut Marko, and we've got to talk about Christian Horner divergent settings as they both chime in on one Isaac Hadjar and Crying Gate. So too, we got to talk about Frederick Vasseur and his comments on Cadillac F1, what that means for F1 and whether or not they will be an OEM before the end of 2028. So too, we'll talk about Liam Lawson, because again, it feels like poison chalice settings as far as that second seat at the Bulls that are red. And finally, we talk about McLaren MCL39 and the secrets that they have up their sleeve, or more precisely, up their brake ducts. Let's talk about one Helmut Marko, who not long said about Isaac Hadjar that it was techie, right? That if you're an F1 driver, then you shouldn't be crying. If you're caught crying on the back of that mistake, then the whole debacle for all parties concerned is embarrassing. Helmut Marko's words, not mine. In stark contrast, however, and this won't be the first time when they've disagreed, the one that they call Christian Horner said of Isaac Hadjar crying, getting hugged by Anthony Hamilton, that it was quite heart-wrenching to see him so gutted. You know, it's his first Grand Prix. After all, who is this chap they call Christian Horner? Since when did Christian Horner have himself a heart? Since when did he have himself the emotion that they call empathy? I know not of whom we talk. And Horner continues, I quote, I think the positives that he needs to take out of it when he reflects back on the weekend, he performed very well through the practices and the qualifying. You get these guys, you forget these guys even are just kids, really. Oh, their humanity. I feel like they must have misquoted him. There's no way that Christian Horner, team principal of the Bulls that are red, could be talking this way about Isaac Hadjar. Empathy. What are we doing here? I feel like we're about to break the space-time continuum. I must be in the Matrix. Horner continues, obviously a lot of emotion for him today, but I think when he steps back, when he gets back up, there's an awful lot of positives he can take out of the weekend. He's got many bright days ahead of him. Has he though, really? This is the question on everybody's tongues, right? F2 last year, Isaac Hadjar was brilliant. Fast. Again, speed is not the restaurant that he never dines at. He's rapid in absolute terms, but does he have a cheeky error of the unforced variety in him? Abso-flipping-lutely. Horner continues. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion from him today, but I think when he steps back, we've read that bit already. Go on then. I think Isaac Hadjar is a dichotomy of a driver. Yeah, he's got a lot of potential in him, but does he need to filtrate? No, distill out for those mistakes of the unforced variety like modern day Jean Alesi did in 2-4. Abso-flipping-lutely. Will he be quicker? Is there lap time for that chap, the French Algerian, if he can become a stoic within the car? Abso-flipping-lutely. Oh, and by the way, let's talk about Frederick Vasseur. And again, this comes courtesy of the one that they call Joe Saywood. For the avoidance of doubt, all F1 journos are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. Frederick Vasseur is quoted as saying of Cadillac F1 that are they even an OEM? That they're not really an OEM going into 2026 because they'll be using themselves a Ferrari engine, and this is techie than techie things. Lest we forget, the reason why Cadillac F1 got into F1 in the first place is because of the North American attention dollars, and so too their affiliation with GM. We need more OEMs in Formula One, the story goes. That was the narrative. That's the yarn that they wanted to spin us. Now, however, it looks like it's more TGW Sports than it is Cadillac F1 and GM. For that's the entity that's on the bloody... That's the heading that's above the door of the new entrant into F1. The 11th team that will come in 2026. So whatever happened to GM? Where's this equity stake that GM hold in TGW Motorsports? Nowhere to be bloody seen. And again, that makes you ask questions off the FIA and this whole bloody process around becoming an entrant into Formula One. How did they get it done so quickly? What happened to the DOJ thing that was ongoing? Did it have anything to do with Biden? Did it have anything to do with Trump coming into power very, very soon? I have no idea. But surely if you are the FIA working in conjunction with the commercial rights holder, none of these things should matter. It shouldn't matter that Mohammed bin Sulayem's affiliates have a working relationship with GM, Cadillac F1 et al. It shouldn't matter. All of that should fade to black. What should be happening is that the FIA, in conjunction with the commercial rights holder, should be measuring all of the new entrants and their £300,000 entry fee, by the way, on their merits. Frederick Vasseur raises questions about that whole bloody process, saying over the course of the race weekend at Australia that Cadillac F1 were anything but an OEM. Oh, the humanity. Let's talk about Liam Lawson, Benzi, Daniel, Andre. It's tricky this, eh? Let's talk about Liam Lawson very quickly, because coming into Australian Grand Prix weekend, all the chat was about how long Jack Doohan would last in that Alpine seat. It's a matter of when, not if. The one that they call Franco Colapinto, the dude who looks exactly the twin of Ayrton Senna, with Carlos Slim's $20 million per year membership or sponsorship even behind him. It's a matter of when, not if, Franco supersedes and succeeds the one that they call Jack Doohan. Now, however, it seems like there's a new name on the chopping block. That name is, of course, Liam Lawson. It's been a techie couple of weeks from Liam Lawson. In testing, he looked all at sea, all over the shop, not yeeting it into the barrier quite, but imbalance was his story. Again, unsettling the car through the contour chicane, bloody absorbing too much curb. And then you get to here, Australia, okay, massive redemption arc potentially, but then he flops it again. 4 of 6 of the rookies ended up DNFing at the altar of changeable conditions, and that has to be the context that factors into this equation, right? But Helmut Marko, the Red Bull paymasters, so too Christian Horner, they do not care for that. They're not interested in that. Red Bull have proven, so long as your name's not Daniel Ricciardo, they will pull the trigger with impunity. They won't hesitate to sack you if your name is Alex Albon, Danny Kvyat, Pierre Gasly. They were all gone quicker than you can say the word even. And it sounds like and feels like there is a whirling dervish, a groundswell around the negativity on Liam Lawson's name. Lest we forget, context is key. You'll remember at Monza last year, there was a secret TPC testing session, were there not? In that session, Liam Lawson had the opportunity to stake his claim as the next greatest, the next best second driver at the Bulls that are red. The feedback on the back of that, if word on the F1 curb is something that you can be invested in, was that Liam Lawson lacked pace, that he was disappointing, that even for the benchmark that is Maximilian Verstappen, for some say soon to be 5-time champion, even if you normalise for that, normalise for the different tyres, Pirelli, that he was on, that still, Red Bull was super disappointed in that dude's pace, because Liam was a gazillion miles off the pace of Max Verstappen. That testing session for Liam Lawson didn't yield the desired outcomes. If indeed you were looking for somebody that was going to get promoted to the seat after Checo Perez's material underperformance. Oh, and by the way, if you add to that because this weekend all I keep hearing is similar accounts. You have the evidence on track. That's your Exhibit A. Helmut Marko won't like that. Liam Lawson's talked ad infinitum about the pressurised circumstance that is being a Red Bull racing driver. Underperform and your neck is on the block. Christian Horner will be looking at that too. You heard Christian Horner talking about Yuki Tsunoda-san, saying that he drove brilliantly over the course of the Australian Grand Prix weekend. Exhibit B. So too you have journos. All F1 journos are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. And Andrew Benson of the BBC is one of the best ones. Over the course of the weekend, the Checkered Flag podcast, the preview of the Australian Grand Prix, Andrew Benson said that he was in touch with a paddock insider who cracked a joke about Liam Lawson as follows. He said that Red Bull have succeeded if indeed their objective was to get a driver that was quicker than Checo Perez's 8/10 shy of Maximilian Verstappen. Because the dude who they replaced him with, Liam Lawson, isn't 8/10 shy of Max Verstappen. He's only 7/10 over humanity, chat. People are taking the mick out of this whole circumstance, this outfit that is Red Bull and their decision making all bloody ready. 7/10 is how far Liam Lawson is adrift of Max Verstappen. And that far adrift, you can't win any Constructors' Championships, particularly if you don't have the fastest car. That's your Exhibit C. Your Exhibit D, Zach Brown, always keen to turn the screw on his rival, the one that they call Christian Horner, said of Red Bull's decision making that they seem to make some stupid, dodgy decisions always as far as their drivers, that they had in their palms a driver ready to go, ready to be promoted to the big seat alongside Max Verstappen in Tsunoda-san, and they decided not to, instead plumping for the dude that they've got evidence on to the contrary, that he's no Yuki Tsunoda. You saw it in the TPC, and also as your Exhibit E, Tsunoda-san. You saw the performance that he put in at Australia. You saw he was as near as makes no difference perfect. Okay, so the team tried to gazump him desperately, but that's no slant on him or his performance. He nailed it at the Australian Grand Prix. And again, that puts ever more eyes, more attention dollars onto the fact that Liam Lawson might not be a peddler fit for purpose, that yet again Red Bull have failed at the altar of sound low-level decision making. Put in that seat Tsunoda-san. Oh, and by the way, let's talk about McLaren, because it's all kicking off as you would expect it to. Now, the oldest truism in F1 history, of course, is that anytime you have a quick car, the other teams will either look to get the quick parts on that quick car banned, or they will look to copy them. Plagiarism settings for F1 is a piranha's tank and an incestuous space inherently, that people will forgive you anything in Formula 1 and life more broadly, just about anything apart from your success. That's why these teams are now looking at that McLaren with a skeptical hippo eye. Oh, is that a mini DRS, aka FlexiWing? What about the FlexiWing on the front? What's that slot gap about? So the likes of Red Bull and Mercedes and Ferrari are now campaigning to make sure these things get banned. Hence why you hear the FIA are looking at slot gap, understanding about load, adjusting the load test for the Chinese Grand Prix, and adjusting the extent to which you can have a cheeky slot gap on your rear wing. These are all getting put into place quicker than you'd expect if, again, due diligence is a thing at the regulatory body that is the FIA. Red Bull have protested, therefore, on both counts. However, there is a new entrant as far as design philosophy. If we're talking about the keys to the MCL39's pace, and here it is, chap. People were alarmed on a couple different counts. Of course, the pace of the MCL39 in absolute terms, of course, rapid, anywhere between 0.4 and 0.6 over a Red Bull driven by Maximilian Verstappen. That tells you all you need to know, surely. And sure, the paces are concerned, but how are they getting and accessing that pace? Of course, it's FlexiWing. Of course, it's maybe mini DRS at the back, but that's going to get clamped down on. So too the slot gap. However, the new entrant as far as the causation, the attributants of the MCL39's pace is this brake duct. You'll recall during testing, chat, do you remember that McLaren in the final test, Lando Norris, I want to say day one, but don't quote me. As soon as they brought Lando Norris back in, they put a Berlin human wall between the car and the world's press and media. People were like, what have they got to hide? Surely if they're so keen to avert the gaze of the press and media, make sure pictures of whatever their secret tool is didn't get out. If they're so ardent, fervent to make sure that that doesn't get out, then surely there will be lap time in this. And then we see this, chat. Here are your pictures. And we're about to get techier than techie things, chat. Because motorsports show this. Giorgio Piola got the pictures, didn't he? And he drew them out. So on the right side of your screen, you can see the MCL39's brake that looks a bit weird, right? Doing something very sexy. The MCL38 2024 iteration of the McLaren car looks very different, basic, much more basic. You can see that bloody contoured line that comes down to the bottom left of the brake that's on the MCL39. And then shout out to Piola again. Got on a bit more detailed, a bit more up close and personal. What is going on there? Of course, they've carved out those contours at the altar of airflow, lest we forget. Andrea Stead has told us a gazillion times, so too Rob Marshall, that the way you build a car in the ground effect era is to make sure you're not doing it in silos. There are a couple tenets, again, if you want to build a race lead, market leading car. Aerodynamics, suspension, of course, and you want to build those things in collaboratively. Otherwise, you'll be doomed to repeat the mistakes of Mercedes Christmas past. They're doing something very clever as far as that brake. That here's how you know, and this is the thing that alerted Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull to the fact that something's going on. Context. Last year, you recall, every single time Lando and Max were racing off the line from the lights went out, it was always the case that Red Bull would get out. Max would be able to pull a gap to Lando Norris in second place. It was almost like Red Bull had the facility to turn on their tyres quicker, get them into that optimal temperature window quicker. This is important, of course, because the rubber patch is always going to be the most important piece on the car. For it's the only piece that comes into contact with the black stuff, with the tarmac, with the road. So your ability to get those tyres to the temperature and keep them in that optimal temperature window is bloody important. No, mission critical if indeed you want to win races, drop it on qualify, and so therefore win championships. Last year, however, Red Bull could do that better in the first instance than McLaren. And then towards the end of the stint, you'll recall, McLaren in the hands of Lando Norris especially would always come on. The gap would be hard, would be big material at the start of the stint, but then towards the end of the first stint, it would go like one of these, like an elastic band. Lando Norris would start gapping materially Maximilian Verstappen. Why? There's a story to this, and it's important we understand it because, of course, context is always key. If you turn on the tyres quicker, this is bloody Mercedes' story over the past 2-3 years, right? If you can turn on the tyres quicker, get them into that optimal temperature window quickest, then there is a penalty to be paid towards the end of the stint. And that was the story of Red Bull and why Lando Norris always towards the end of the stint would gap Max Verstappen, would close up that gap because of the fact that he couldn't turn on his tyres as quick as Red Bull, they wouldn't degrade as fast. That's why Lando was always quickest towards the latter stages of the first stint. This is 2024 though. Now, however, we find ourselves in a different circumstance for MCL39. It has the gift but no curse, all the upside but no downside. It combines the RB20 iteration of car, its characteristics as far as its ability to warm up the tyres very, very quickly, and it too has the characteristics as the MCL38, that again it's able to minimise for its tyre deg houseway. Normally if you can turn on your tyres quicker, then you will experience deg quicker, not with this MCL39. And the theory goes that it's all at the altar of those bloody brake duct thingies, whatever the name is for them. Let me read out what this article says because it's techie. It's techier than I can understand with my very noddy B-spec brain. This article reads, and again, shout out to Auto Racer and Motorsport.it, by the way. It says that what they've got on that brake, this leads to evacuating the heat from a vent upstream of the intake, trying to ensure that the high temperature produced during braking does not radiate to the rim of the tyre and consequently the tyre more broadly. Increase the temperatures. So what they're trying to do, therefore, let me translate, is control the rate at which the hot air from the brake duct reaches and affects, therefore, the tyre compound. Second segment, let me read out this paragraph again because I don't understand all this complicated stuff. Increase temperature control with fresh air. That's what that thing's doing. Then, for the triggering of the tyre in the right operating window, Andrea Stella says, the McLaren team principle, that we set, his words, not mine, we set ourselves the objective to achieve with aerodynamics, but we also wanted to improve the behaviour of the tyres. I think, continues Andrea Stella, team principal of McLaren, I think that in the first stint, we were able to open up the gap on the opponents at Australia, which I don't think is only due to the car. This competitiveness surprises us, not in terms of our objectives, but in terms of its extent. McLaren, chat, are doing something very crafty with those tyres. Again, you'll remember that they tried to do something, if rumour on the F1 curb is to be something that you want to trust, that last year people were doing something dodgy with water in the tyres. What? Now, however, it seems like they're doing something very fancy under the umbrella heading of managing tyres, trying to minimise for tyre degradation even, and expedite for the learning curve that is getting the tyres into the optimal temperature window in real time. McLaren have the whip hand, not just because of aero, but because of this sexy thing on their brake duct and the amount of control that it exerts upon their tyres. Tyre deg for them, MCL39, especially in the hands of Lando Norris 2.0, is a myth. Oh, the humanity, chat. What are we doing here?